Good day and greetings from the Great White North. My name is Prickly Poo and welcome to day 226 of a Year of Change. Today we're going to talk about something that I touched on over the weekend, and it's something that's been bugging me for a couple of days now, where we've sort of gotten back on track. It's nice to sort of go back and take a look and say, okay, I know what I'm doing and I'm doing the right thing, but we can sort of look back and see we've done stuff that you may not have. I have done stuff that I probably shouldn't have. Not going on huge binges and not scarfing down a ton of junk food and a ton of candy and everything else. But little things here and there that you're like, I shouldn't be doing that, but I'm going to do it anyway. So, prime example of that are the hot dogs. Buying hot dogs, we aren't cutting any food out, so it's fine to have those, but, have one or two. Don't have 4 and 5 and 6 like I used to. Having those, it's not the best thing in the world. I should be having more salads and lean chicken and pork and all the other good stuff. But every now and then, you get a craving for a hot dog, so there you go. The thing is, though, is that it's not like going back and eating 20 of them right in a row. I'm just using hot dogs because that's what I know. Whatever your food of choice is. Nachos, there's another one. I haven't had nachos since I started this 226 days ago. That would have been something that easily have 2 or 3 great big plates just piled high with nachos and everything else on it in a single sitting. That's something that I think is a little overboard for the moment, and something that I'm going to try to avoid. But hot dogs, aside from the sodium and everything else in there, they aren't that bad. You can still go out, you can have a hot dog, and you're going to be okay. But when you're talking to people, I don't know what it is. I've lost around 60 pounds so far. So what I'm doing is working. And yes, I've had my weeks where I've gained. I've had my weeks where I've lost. But in general, we know what we're doing. It's whatever we are doing is working because we've seen progress. So when you talk to someone and you start saying, well, yes, I've lost weight, but the last week was pretty bad because I ended up having hot dogs, they still, even now, they jump right on that. And it's not even people that are fat or that have already lost weight or anything like that. There are people that have given me advice that are, have always been skinny. There are people that have given me advice that are bigger than I am. There are people that have already lost the weight. It comes from everywhere. But it's every now and then you get someone who gives you that really stupid piece of advice as if it's the very first time you've ever heard it. And coming out with something and saying, oh, well, yes, you shouldn't be eating those. You're not going to lose weight. I know. Everybody knows that. This is why I preface my conversation with, I've had a bad week. Here's why, because I'm eating stuff that I shouldn't. It would be the same thing as saying, well, I'm eating the same amount, but I've stopped exercising. And then immediately having someone look at you and say, well, you need to exercise. You can't just obviously sit there and do nothing. You're going to get fatter. I know. This is not new information. And we get that a lot from people where I don't know if it comes from a place where they want to help, but there seems to be just this scolding air about it. It's not the same as, listening to someone talk and them saying, oh, it's great. I've been eating hot dogs for 2 weeks. Like, they're bad, and no one's ever really surprised at that. But there seems to be this sort of finger-wagging tisk-tisk attitude that comes along with it. And in some cases, which I've seen, when, they give you that information, there's that snarky, snotty attitude that goes along with it. Not all the time, but every now and then it's, well, you're not going to lose weight that way. Like, I know that, you ass. This is why I'm saying it's been a bad week. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because I've had this conversation a few times with people. And, it's not one of those things that I go and I start saying, oh, guess what I'm doing? I'm losing all this weight and everything else. It's if someone brings it up to me and then I'll talk about it. And usually it starts out with, no, I haven't cut anything out. I've just, I've started tracking everything and I'm doing exercise and I'm eating properly and stuff like that. But every now and then, there will be someone who decides to take it upon themselves to say, well, then you should do this. And it's that advice, which, any advice is welcome. But when you have people that sort of dive right in, we've talked about this before. I'm not talking about the ones that sort of jump at you and say, well, you need to go on this paleo diet because this way it's going to do this, or a high fat or a low carb diet. All these different fad diets that will never work. And you just sort of go, yeah, that's not what I'm doing. And obviously what I'm doing, it's slow, but it's working. I mean, granted, there's parts of me that are going, I want this to go a little bit faster. But I know I'm making progress. I know that what I'm doing is working. So I'm just going to stick with it. It's going to drag things out a little bit longer. I'm not going to lose as much as I should in the short amount of time that I should. But in the long run, I'm going to get to where I want to be. And that's all that matters. Whether you lose it in 2 months or 2 years, if you're changing things to a point where you know you'll be able to sustain it and you're still losing and you're still doing it in a healthy way where you're not just starving yourself, then you're fine. I think everything's going to be okay at that point. But that attitude that we get from people where the odd thing is I find that you get this from people who are trying to lose weight as well. And I don't know if it's when they first start out or when, if they've already been successful. And there would be a little bit more justification to it if it were people that had already lost weight and there's like, you shouldn't be doing this. But again, I mean, either way, when you say to someone, I know I've had a bad week. Obviously, we've been doing this for 6 or 7 months and we've made quite a bit of progress. We aren't all of a sudden now going to say, well, we've hit the 7-month mark, so we can start eating pizza and nachos and hot dogs and all the other stuff. We know that we can't. If you're going out with friends or you're having, a special night or something, then fine. Then yeah, you can have some. But we can't eat the way that we were eating before. But when you try to tell that to someone and they just sort of immediately pounce on it, and there's this weird, there's this attitude of, well, you're being stupid. You're not going to lose weight that way. That's why it's not working. And you just kind of want to choke the shit out of them a little bit and say, it is working. I had a rough week or a rough day or whatever it is that you're, whatever you're talking about. So you're trying to do this to sort of open up and share with other people. Because no one starts a diet and doesn't fall off the wagon, at least once in the middle of it. I mean, we've gotten to a point where we've tried so many different things, and what we're trying now is working. So we've stayed on course, but I've had days where I've fallen off. I'm sure you have had days where you've fallen off. And we're always going to have those days where you just go, I went over. Or my sodium is too high, or my sugar is too high, or whatever it is. Halloween just went by this weekend. So normally with something like that, people tend to, overeat on the candy. You're taking your kids' candy or it's your candy, whatever it is that you're doing, or you bought candy and no one showed up, so you're just sitting there with candy. I'm not a candy person. I don't have any people that come to my house, so I didn't buy anything, and so I don't really run the risk of that. And if it was something that I was going to be buying a whole bunch of chips, I would know that I'm the one who's buying them, so I just don't buy it. But I did go to a friend's house. They have kids. They were handing out candy and everything else, and I grabbed 2 or 3 things. So you still will do that on, in situations like that, but it doesn't mean that, you're an idiot and that you don't know what you're doing. We're always going to have days like that. And just being able to say, no, I've accepted the fact that those days are going to happen and then just move on is fine. But I don't know what it is. There's an attitude that comes along with it from people. And like I say, a lot of the time I find it's from people that are just sort of starting out. And in the same way that you don't really want to take advice from someone that if you've been at your job for 10 years and you have a brand new person hired in off the street, they're your boss, when they start telling you how to do your job, that pisses me off. You know what? No. Learn the job first, then I can take guidance from you, but I'm doing my job. I do my job well. Fuck off. Just do your own thing. Once you know how everything's running, then you can come to me. And I feel it's the same way, that what we've been doing for 6 or 7 months has been working. And when you have someone that's only been doing it for, 2 or 3 weeks, and I mean, when you first start out, you're all gung-ho and you say, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to eat nothing but health food and I'm going to go vegan and I'm going to do, whatever you're going to do. To look down on someone and say, well, you can't obviously do that. You're not going to lose any weight that way. You need to do what I'm doing is just shitty. And part of what we've been trying to build here with other people is that we can take a number of different methods of losing weight, and it's going to work for some people. It's not going to work for others. There are some, I'm sure, that have started in with what we were doing, and for some reason they haven't been able to stick to it. So, they've gone to the gym, and that's what they found, is that they enjoy actually going, whether it's just cardio stuff or weightlifting, whatever it is, that's what they enjoy. For others, it's a matter of saying, no, you know what, I am going to cut out everything. And I'm going to go vegetarian. And they're following that. And that's working for them. Whatever it is that you decide to work on, and whichever method you decide to use, as long as it's something that is overall, a healthy decision, and that you're still balancing everything out, then it should be fine. But just like ex-smokers, I used to smoke a lot, and I've never looked down on someone who smoked because I've been there. It's not something that I can look at them and just go, well, you're disgusting, you're going to die because you smoke. Everyone knows that. This isn't new information. And the same thing with getting advice about weight loss. None of it's new. None of what we've been doing is new. Our program is probably the oldest thing out there. Saying, eat properly, get regular exercise. That's really it. And even if you want to simplify it more and just say, eat less, do more. And this has sort of been the basis of any weight loss that's out there. And even you can go after pills and powders and all the other stuff and spend hundreds of dollars on everything, but in the end, when you really look at it, you're still cutting back on the amount of calories that you're doing, and most times you're going to end up increasing the exercise that you're doing as well. But trying to force yourself force your body to just start burning fat without having that balance, I don't think is very healthy. Anyway, getting off topic. Part of the reason why this sort of prompted this conversation was, I was telling someone about having just a bad week, and I went, you know what, I know I shouldn't eat them, but I bought hot dogs. And immediately they just, well, you're not going to lose weight that way. And I hadn't even finished my sentence. And when you get to that point where you're just like, well, then why the hell am I talking to you? I'm just not going to bring it up again. And I haven't. Luckily, my friends are good. I'll rant and vent along with them, and they understand that they aren't going to tell me anything that I don't already know. A lot of them have known me for a very long time. I've always been the fat one. So, doing what I'm doing, they're seeing it. So they understand, well, no, you're obviously having a rough week. They may ask and say, well, when are you going to get back on track, or what are you going to do, things like that. But it's never sort of a tisk, shame on you for doing this. I've never gotten that from them. But you get that a lot from other people, and oddly enough, people that are just starting out losing weight as well. When they start out in a program and say that they went, good enough, I'm going to go vegetarian, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week for a couple of hours a day, and they stick to it, so it's working. But when you're doing whatever you're doing, if it is working, it doesn't give you the right to look down on someone who's still trying over and over and over again, and maybe they've tried the gym and that's not working, so they try just the vegan diet, that doesn't work. So they try the low carb diet, that doesn't work. Looking down on them and shitting on them is not going to help. We know this, that we've been the target of ridicule so many times and for such a long time that we know what that's going to do. It's going to end up pushing us back. So if you're to a stage where you're having success with what you're doing, don't be an asshole. You can still encourage other people and say, this is what's working for me. If you want, you're welcome to try it with me. We can do this, lower your pace a bit. It's different for everybody. When we first started this out, we were tracking stuff, but we weren't even counting it against us. We just wanted to take an overall look at what we were doing for food intake. And it's been a long, long time just making little tiny changes throughout the past 6 or 7 months to get where we are. And for some, that may work. It may work great. It's the one thing that's been working for me. I do think talking... I'm going to choke. I do think that talking every day with you folks, with all you folks, I think talking every single day with you guys actually does help with that. I think it keeps me on track because I haven't missed a day, and if I miss a day, it's going to drive me nuts, so I need to stay on track. And if I'm talking to you, I need to make sure that I'm sticking to what I'm doing, because otherwise I end up coming back and going, I ate a bunch of shit that I shouldn't have, and it's been a really rough week. But one good thing is that the people that we've sort of gathered in together with YouTube, there isn't any of that sort of scolding or I'm better than you because I'm having more success than you. It's all very, very supportive, and it's something that I think we're going to be sticking with when we're picking out new YouTubers and stuff like that. We need to stay with people that are going to be able to support us, not the ones that have lost 200 pounds and then say, well, you need to do this because this is how I did, and if you can't do it, then obviously you're weak. No, it worked for you. It may work for a whole host of other people. It may even work for us if we tried it, But if you found something that you're doing now and it's working, then stick with what's working. And you can gradually add in more things as things go along. I find it really odd, just like the ex-smokers, the people that are just starting out and have started to lose weight, where they still have that, well, I'm better than you because I've lost weight and you're still struggling. And it's so strange how quickly they forget the years and years and years that they've been struggling with it themselves until they latched onto that one thing and until they found that method that works for them. So if you ever get to that point where you're looking at yourself and you think, you know what, I'm doing really well, I'm making good progress, and someone comes to you and says, how are you doing it? Just keep in mind where you were 7 months ago. And think back to how shitty you felt and how you didn't even want to bother trying anything else, and where you got to that point where you were so desperate that you're thinking, well, I want to try this and this and this and this, whatever it's going to take to get rid of those pounds. So whether it's surgery or diet or exercise or all three or whatever it is that you've done to get to where you are, just remember where you were at your worst moment. Because generally, if someone's coming up to you and asking, like, how did you do it, they're looking for some input. They aren't looking for a lecture. We know how hard it is to go up to someone and say, I'm fat. I know you used to be fat. How did you lose the weight? Because I want to try it, because I'm tired of being this way. So instead of a lecture, give them that support that they need. And think back and think, what would I have wanted to hear back then? You wouldn't want someone, wagging their finger in your face and saying, well, you need to do this and this and this and this, and otherwise you're going to die. We know this. Work with them and say, here's what I did to start out. And start out very, very slow, and ideally just sort of set the stage for what you want to do. If they find that they have an activity that they enjoy, encourage them to start in on that and do more of that, because anything is better than what we were doing, which is just sort of sitting around watching TV, playing video games, doing nothing, and just eating and sleeping and pooping, and that's it. That was our life. So, and for many of us it still is, but as long as we're making progress, we're okay. So it's really tough to try to convey that to someone. And when you're telling them, well, I've had a rough week and this and this and this, and they come back at you with that, that's when you just sort of want to cut them off and say, well, I'm just not going to simply talk to you about this anymore because you're a piece of shit and you don't understand, so why would I bother? So anyway, that was it. That was a little bit of a rant. I'm sorry. It's something that's been grating on my nerves for a while. I had this discussion with someone last week, and it's just... Ugh. Anyway, I don't know what else to say with this. Just basically, you don't have to go seeking people out, but if someone comes up to you and asks you or compliments you, keep in mind it's probably a veiled attempt at them asking, how did you do this? I'd kind of like to try it out. And sort of set them on the path. And if it doesn't work for them, then it doesn't work for them. If they try and then they fail for the first week, that's fine. Have them try again if they're willing to. Just be encouraging for them and be there for support. Be encouraging for them? This doesn't make any sense. Be encouraging to them, for them. Be an encouraging source for them. No, what am I thinking of? Fuck it. All right, be supportive. There we go. And encourage them. That's better. Be supportive and encourage them in what they're trying to do, because it may take, it might be the same thing that you've been doing, but it may take them 3 and 4 attempts before they finally start staying on track and doing it. And as we've seen that, it works for us, but everyone's going to have a little something different that goes sort of hand in hand with that. With me, it's my treadmill. With you might be going outside and doing stuff. You might be going and playing a sport. You might be doing something entirely different altogether. You might be weightlifting. So, the pace is going to be a bit different, but just being able to have that support system, I think, is one of the more important things for this. So it's important to remember where we sort of came from and where many of us, including myself, still are. I still look for information, and I still look for things that are going to help out. And, a lot of it isn't really new information, but being able to look back and, say, okay, I can confirm that what I've been doing is healthy and that it is going to work in the long term. Even when I have those weeks where I gain and I lose, I know why I gain. And then when I get back on track, I tend to lose because I'm eating properly and I'm exercising and everything else. So it's important to remember that, and I'm repeating myself. So I'm going to leave this video here. Be supportive with people. That's basically the crux of this. And don't be a douchebag. If someone asks you for advice or if they just want to vent and talk to you, don't jump down their throat and start, rattling off a bunch of rules that you found have helped you. Just listen to them. Find out what you think might help them and say, here's what's worked for me. Try it. Don't try it. Whatever you decide to do. At least they know that there's going to be someone that's going to be there for them. I think that's the most important. Anyway, I'm going to leave this video here because otherwise I'm just going to keep rambling and get madder and madder and madder. So, anyway, there was something else I was going to say. I can't remember what it was. I've forgotten. Anyway, I'm going to leave this. So, thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, please poke the like button for me. And in the meantime, keep yourself warm and fuzzy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.